everyone. Welcome back to She Birds Podcast. I'm your host, Brooke Wright, and today's guest is Christina. Hi, Christina.
Hey, badass.
Thank you so much for being a guest today on my podcast.
Thank you for inviting me. I am so excited. I'm also a little
So,
nervous because, I'm
oh,
a Caucasian
don't be nervous.
virgin.
Don't be nervous. so, so I wanted you to tell us, what does the title "The Making of a Fake Asian" mean to you?
Yes. Well, thanks for asking. Well, as I was, or over the course of my life, people have been asking me to write a memoir and tell, the stories that have happened to me in my life, beginning with my birth, which took place in a Taiwanese prison, and and being born in a Taiwanese prison was the beginning, right? But ultimately, I'm the 12th child, and my mother, my birth mother, was in prison when she birthed me, and I believe that she was not well. She was not physically well, and she could not produce breast milk to feed me. So I think they allowed me to stay with her, but a prison guard snuck powdered milk to her. And so I thrived. I think they just thought I was probably, going to die and of starvation, and I didn't. So they took me from her and put me into an orphanage, and in that orphanage, my adopted parents, who are white Americans, my father was stationed in the Air Force, and my mother went with him, and my adopted mother. They actually had adopted a baby just before me, and that little baby died before they were able to bring her home. And then they had attempted to adopt another baby through a fraudulent adoption agency. And so they kind of gave up. And so my adopted mother, this blonde haired, blue eyed young woman, and her only other American woman stationed or she wasn't stationed, but on the base with my mother, decided that they were going to volunteer at the local hospital. And they saw a notice on the board that a baby had been put into an orphanage. And so my mother and my adoptive father went and paid $100 for me and took me home, I think mostly as a souvenir, right?
Oh, wow.
So they brought me to the US, right? And the reason I kind of know the story is because my birth mother asked if she could write a letter to me and put it into the paperwork that was sent with me, and took 3 years for me to get naturalized as a US citizen. And during that time, with all the paperwork, everything was translated into English, including her letter. And so it was sent to my mother and father, who got it and just kept it from me. And so she told me the story that she was going blind and she was not in good health, and that I was the 12th child.
Oh,
So
wow.
growing up, I, had these amazing parents who brought me from Taiwan to America. But little did they know that I was actually Asian.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Think that they didn't really understand the race issue, right? And because my father used to constantly say to me, "Girl, you're not Asian. You're poor white trash like the rest of us." So I grew up on a dairy goat farm,
Oh, wow.
on like 7 acres of myrtle trees and dairy goats. At one time, we had like almost 100 goats, and in this, really rural part of southern Florida. And some people don't think of Florida as sort of country,
Mhm.
but where I grew up, it was very rural. It was kind of farming area, and we were on the opposite side of the tracks of Tropicana, and so it's still very southern. And you have to remember, because I just turned 55 last year, so I was born in '69, and as I was growing up, this is, kind of coming out of the Korean War, the Vietnam War, right? And so people that lived in my little country, hillbilly kind of hick town, did not know what an actual real live Asian person looked like. And to be honest with you, Rick, I didn't either. I hadn't seen any other Asian people who were on television myself, right? And the most I got to see was maybe on MASH, right? The TV series MASH at that time, or a lot of kung fu. And so it was hard for me to relate
Mhm,
to my race.
mhm.
But other people related to me based on my race, right?
Yeah.
So my family used to say all the time, sort of like, why is it such a big deal to you that, you this race thing? And I'm like, well, because it is me. And
Mhm,
I don't see anyone who looks like me or who is in my culture,
mhm,
or even in my race, right? And so the making of a fake Asian is kind of my life journey of trying to, sort of embrace my Asianness that feels very foreign. I mean, quite honestly, I don't even know how to use chopsticks. Okay.
Really?
like like sushi, and I mean, we're being like very stereotypical, right? I mean, what's the problem? And I'm like, what is a fork for, right? Like, I don't know how to use these stick things and trying to stab things. Um, but at the same time, being Asian isn't something that I can hide or that I could, try to. And I did when I was very young, probably about six or so. I tried to bleach my skin. I tried to pour bleach on my skin. I tried to take a bath in bleach. I wanted to have the same skin tones as my adopted mother. I, dyed my hair platinum blonde, and burnt the heck out of my scalp. I tried to put toothpicks, in my eyes so that they weren't so slanted, and that lasted for like a second after like putting my eyes out. Um, yeah, and so um, struggling with just my race and my appearance, right, also caused some body dysmorphia, right? Like I didn't feel like I was in the right body. I didn't want to be, this race. I didn't know how to handle racism because my family didn't know what racism was. And in a way, I think they thought that it wasn't a real thing.
Mhm.
And they also didn't understand their own racism.
Oh, wow.
So it made it, an interesting journey through my life, and certainly in my childhood, and through my teenage years of coming to terms with the fact that I'm Asian, but I don't know how to be Asian. And I would go into Asian communities and also be told you're not Asian, right? I tried to take
Yes.
my children to Chinese school when my eldest was in elementary school, and I was turned away. I was told, no, you're not a real Asian. I wasn't
Wow.
allowed in my friend's home. This like really sweet family moved into the area, and I forget what part of Asia they were from, but I wasn't allowed in her home. Her mother told us that I wasn't a real Asian, and we had to stand outside in the driveway. And she cried the whole entire time, and
What?
we didn't talk at all. She didn't know how to handle it. I didn't know how to handle it. We never spoke after that. It was just very strange. But so that there was always sort of this, kind of linear space that I was in between, I'm not really Asian, and I'm not, white, and then I'm not any of these other things. What am I? So, that's what it's meant to me. As I started to write my memoir, thinking about what is, if I summed up kind of like how my life has, sort of evolved. Um, it starts with, the making of a fake Asian,
Mhm,
because I, never really been able to feel authentic
mhm,
in different spaces, and especially in terms of race. But I was still very much, like I said, met with racism, especially growing up, and even during, the pandemic and
yeah.
COVID. So
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
very concerned about my children too when those terminologies were being used in that way. I told my kids, during the pandemic, I was like, I really just, at first, I was like, I don't want you guys going out. And because I've come back to the community that I grew up in just since the pandemic. And a
Mhm.
lot has changed, but a lot hasn't. Right. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, so there was some more of that posturing and that, um, commentary about people from China should go home and not
Yeah.
not come back here. And I'm like, well, I don't agree, but I'm also not Chinese, so
You're right.
it's like the wrong country. And people
So
in
have you
school.
ever met any of your siblings? Like, have you ever met any of your siblings that
Well,
was
yeah, yeah. So that's a whole nother story too. So like almost 50 years later, right? We had this opportunity
what?
completely by divine intervention. It had nothing to do with, trying to find my family. I had given up the idea of that, when I was very young, because I don't know anyone who speaks Taiwanese or Mandarin or Chinese or whatever. Um, and I didn't know anyone from there. And so I never really had an interest in finding my family, but we had an opportunity. And it was now about like 7 years ago that my mother was invited to go on a cruise, and she was going to uh, join a friend who was already cruising, and her friend said, why don't you meet me in Taiwan? And it's the friend who was with her when my adoptive mother adopted me, and
Oh.
her name is Christine. And she said, hey, let's meet in Taiwan, and then we'll do the rest of the cruise together. So my mother called me and she said, hey, I'm going to meet Chris in Taiwan. Do you want to come with me? And maybe we could go before the cruise and, just see where you were born. So I said, I probably have no other reason that I would go there. So yeah, let's just go do it. And I told her, I said, now listen, do not get your hopes up that I'm going to find any of my family. Like, we know we can't do it. We've tried it before. There's just no way. So my mom's like, okay, because she's the person who would have hunted everybody down. And I said, you're gonna bug me the whole time, and it's not gonna happen. So anyway, so we did not go there with that intention, and a whole bunch of really amazing, miraculous, completely divine, synchronicities happened. But what ended up happening is, I met three living sisters and a living brother. And I know there are more siblings that are alive. The eldest sister that I met in person is the same age as my adopted mother. And they did not know about me.
Oh.
In fact, my brother, and when we first met with them, did not believe us. He thought that we were scammers. And only one of my sisters, who happened to be a teenager, or kind of like almost a teenager at the time that my mother was pregnant with me, knew about her pregnancy. And she knew, but she didn't tell anybody. She had been keeping it a secret. So I have a 1 year older sister who went to the prison with my mother, and she was sent back to my elder siblings. So, she was the 11th child. And so she was sent to them, and 10 of them were trying to take care of each other, right? And so they sent her back to the prison and said, listen, we don't even have enough food and resources to take care of who we already have to take care of. So we
Yeah.
can't take care of this baby. And so they knew about that baby, but they did not know about me. And I heard from my sisters that my eldest brother had always felt guilt for sending that baby back and not being able to take care of her. So what my sister said to me is, if he would have known that about you, and he would have known that you went to America and are okay, he would have been so happy. But they didn't know about me at all. So it was a surprise to them and a surprise to us that we were able to meet and connect.
Oh, so do you still keep in touch with them? Like, do you send them letters every now and then and say,
It's
"Hey"?
really it's not, very easy, right,
Mhm,
where they are, first of all, they don't speak English, and,
mhm,
they also speak a dialect that is an ancient language. In fact, when we realized that we knew where they were, the administrator, we called him the director of family services that helped me find them, he said that they even contacted different universities to find someone who could translate that their language, because it's nobody speaks it anymore, and it's kind of a dying language. But the irony is, right, again, there's divine interventions. The young woman that we met, who happened to have been a an exchange student here in our town in Florida, who stayed in the home of two of our church members for 2 years and went to school here. She happened to still be in Taiwan. And when we reached out and asked if she would kind of show us around, she said, of course. And she teaches English at a school there.
oh,
And when we met with her, I was kind of a little bit concerned about asking her if she wanted to come with us to find my family or to go meet with them, because we were trying to do that. But once she heard kind of our story, she was like, "Yes, of course, I want to help you," because she was supposed to actually go back to work. Well, when
mhm,
they told her that my family only speak this certain language and they live in a very poor, impoverished, area of Taiwan,
mhm,
um, she said, my grandparents used to speak that language. And she said, I think I might be able to remember it. So when they started speaking to her, she said, yes, I can understand them. And she could speak it. So she went with us and translated. So,
nice.
in terms of trying to stay in touch with them now, I mean, we've done, a little bit of video through Line, which is kind of like a WhatsApp. Um,
Oh, okay.
and I was able to see my brother before he passed away.
Oh,
But since the pandemic, it's been very hard to
yeah.
reach them. But I know that they're there. They know I'm here, and I'm hoping that within the next few years, I can take all my kids and
Yeah.
take them there so they can see where their their heritage is, right?
Yeah,
So they don't
yeah.
stay a fake Asian.
So, can you share your experiences with racism and sexism? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh, wow, okay. Well, how much time you got, Brooke? Um, well, first of all, I mean, of course, being a young person in a community that was all white and very country, right, hillbilly. Of course, was bullied, and getting off the bus was always kind of a beat down, and the kids were just kind of repeating things they had heard, calling me a chink, calling me Ho Chi Minh and Viet Cong, and things like that. And partially I didn't even know what that was, and I'm pretty sure that they didn't either, right? Um, and learning, right, that how to kind of stand up to that, or to deal with it. But throughout my entire life, there's been that. But probably one of the most distinct things is when I was about 17 years old. I had a friend who was she was friends with two professional or students that were becoming professional tennis players in our town. And there's a professional tennis school here that um, athletes like Andre Agassi studied and learned how to play tennis here. And so we had these two friends of hers were from South America, and I don't remember which countries exactly, but anyway, so I had a car and they wanted to see the beach, and they were leaving the country the next day. So before they left the US, they said, all we really want is to be able to go see the beach. And so we said, yeah. She asked me, would you be willing to take us? I said, of course. Um, and this is a very prestigious school and a very expensive school, right? And these guys came in their white polo tennis shirts and tennis shorts, all white, and very, very, very polite and young people, but couldn't speak English very well. And so we went to the beach, and I didn't speak Spanish well, but I could, carry a conversation a little bit, and so could she. We went to the beach, and as we were leaving, a police car shined its light into my windshield, and used the speaker and said, to get out of the car. And we were really the only people out there, and it wasn't dark yet because they had a curfew. But it was, it was evening.
Mhm.
And so I told everybody in the car, just stay in the car, and I came out. Now, mind you, I'm a teenager. And so, but I lived there and I knew some things. So I said, just stay in the car, let me get out, let me, talk to them. So I got out, and by the time I had gotten out, the officers had already come up, and they, made us all get out. And they actually took the seats out of my car, and they told me that they were looking for drugs, and the entire time they were calling us drug dealers, and using all, the profanity, calling me a chink, calling them spics, calling us all kinds of names, right, and telling us to go back
What?
to our countries. And so these boys were trying to talk to the law enforcement officers, went up to them, and the police just started beating the snot out of them. I mean, just,
What?
and the blood was everywhere. And so I went over, and they grabbed me. One of them grabbed me and threw me into the to my car, and put his knee in my crotch, grabbed my hair, was banging my head against the hood of the car, and we're just like a bloody mess. My girlfriend was standing at the passenger side. She was, a white girl, and she just cried. They didn't lay a hand on her. Um, and basically, just beat us until we were puking, and then, just left us there. So, I mean, is that, that's an extreme example. Um,
What?
but, that's an event in my life that impacted my life way before Rodney King happened. And of course, George Floyd. So, it
What?
impacted my paradigm, right, about
Mhm.
what is safe and who is safe, right, and what is.
Yeah.
I came home, and I talked to my family about it, and they, my father made a comment which was very common, well, that's what you get for being out late at night, and you shouldn't have been with those people, to begin with. And I had called, one of my relatives who was a law enforcement officer in a different town, and he said, "Listen, if you report this, it's going to be all about you, and this is a good old boy town, and you just need to, just be glad you're not dead." And I asked, the young guys that I was with if they wanted me to contact the police, whatever, like, do you
Dang.
want to contact the police after they just beat the snot out of you? No. They were
Mhm.
worried also that they were going to get kicked out of their school. And so, we just stood and cried together, and I got them back. But, so yeah, I mean, I want to say that racism is changing. I have um, three of my eldest sons are African American and Asian, and my
Mhm.
youngest son is Mexican, Italian, and Asian. Um, and I think even now, I'm like I said, I'm 55 years old now, and I'm still very aware of what the impact of racism. And I think when we have had different cultural attempts to say, oh, we're all human, or we're all just one human race. I mean, yes, I love that we, are human, and that we, want to believe in humanity,
Mhm.
but ultimately my race still matters, right? And
Mhm.
even though I find it foreign to be Asian in many ways, I also am Asian,
Mhm.
and so I can't pretend that's not a part of my identity, and
Mhm.
also a way that people treat me in terms of those discriminating you know belief systems. When I was in college, I sat in a classroom and we were talking about the isms, and I sat next to with a woman who was getting ready to go into the Peace Corps. And she and I were the only persons of color in the whole class. And when the class was asked, how they felt about racism, um, there were many people in the class who said they had never seen an Asian person or a Black or African American person in person, or that they
What?
had also believed things like, I or Asian people have booby traps in our backyards, and have tails, and that my friend going into the Peace Corps also ate humans, and we're talking about in the 90s, right?
What?
So yeah, uh racism is still something that I live with, and that I'm aware of, and I work really hard to address. Right, we can't
Yeah.
just ignoring it doesn't make it better. And
That
sexism kind of intersects right into the conversation. Certainly, I grew up in a home with my father as a young person. My father was a bigot, and he was constantly making jokes about women being bimbos, and
yeah.
not being intelligent, and good for only having babies, and being in the kitchen and things of that sort, and certainly in a country atmosphere too. So
Mhm.
um and that tends to wave into my adulthood is being even as a business owner, right? And as an entrepreneur and as a single mom, um, the discrepancy between success and sort of the metrics of success.
Mhm.
We don't see women, or I don't see as many women represented and as business owners or in
Mhm.
leadership, right? Or as in, in those sort of socioeconomic brackets of
Yeah.
wealth and authority and position.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the still real deal, right? And still need to talk about it, and there's just not enough representation, um, and that means there's barriers that are still there, and I think it is still due to sexism,
Yeah.
and also um, and where are the women of color, right? Or where are the
Yep.
women of color who have different abilities, and all of those markers that we still need to do a lot of work
Oh,
to
yeah.
change.
Oh, yeah. Like, I definitely agree with you. At first, I was kinda like, maybe women have come up in the world, but when I worked in plenty of different places, I see more men being CEOs and more men being CFOs and CTOs, however you say it. Like, more men being those. I don't see very many women being in those positions.
Exactly. One time I was invited to be part of a mayor's office diversity task force, and we had our very first meeting to talk about creating some harassment policies in our town. We had some issues with racism and sexism that happened in the town, and so I was already in the room, the meeting room, right, and so the others started coming in, and they were all white men,
Yep.
except for there was one other man, African American man, who was part of it, who came in later. But as the white men came in, right, and I was sitting down already, um, one of the men sat next to me, and he turned to me, in the chair, and he reached over and he put his hand on my hand, and he said, "I like my coffee with cream and sugar." And I said, "Oh, okay. Well, thank you for sharing, because I don't like coffee at all." Right? And
What?
no, and I mean, that's just indicative, right, of kind of the ideology and the continual perpetual, sort of positioning that no, even now, right, that people have about, women in these positions, that we don't belong there, or if we are there, we're there to serve, right, and not to have a seat at the table.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man. So I wanted you to tell us a little bit about your brand, the Badass Christina Cooper Foster. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, thanks for asking. Well, this is a new branding for us. So, and I say us because so my kids, when people ask them, "Hey, is this your mom?" My kids have always said, "No, it's my badass." And so, just about 2 years ago now, um, I was really trying to decide, about my business, and I've been a transformation life and business coach for high powered women for nearly over 15 years,
Huh?
and my practice has always been kick ass coaching, coaching women to kick ass in the boardroom and the bedroom. And
Yeah.
so for the last 15 years, I've had kick-ass coaching, and it's been pretty controversial and provocative and a little bit before its time. But after 15 years, I was kind of going, I'm kind of getting, kind of seeing that things are changing in the industry.
Mhm.
When I started out as a life and business coach, people were asking me, what sport did I play? And, and really didn't understand what coaching really was.
Mhm.
Now, there's, we call it the knowledge industry, and the knowledge industry is $1 billion a day industry,
Oh,
which is really people learning how to become life and business coaches in different ways, right? And
nice.
so as I was, having my own sort of probably midlife crisis and wanting to fire myself and getting ready to turn 55 and thinking, oh my gosh, am I still working? Am I retiring? And I, never felt that I would probably ever retire, right? Um, my kids said, and then in COVID happened, right? And pandemic. And I was like, I'm done. I think I just got put out of business, because I
Oh,
had always seen my clients, in my home office, and held master classes
mhm.
in person. And my kids came to me and said, Mom, there's this thing called the internet. I was like, nobody is going to want to, transform their life over a screen.
Mhm.
And my kids basically made me a dare. And they said, we dare you to learn this thing called Zoom and this thing called virtual, spaces. And if it doesn't work, then you'll be right. But we're pretty sure it'll work, because we've been living like this, our entire lives.
Mhm.
And so once we started to kind of revision, could I still have the same impact in people's lives and still do the work that I feel very called to do, and really want to serve people to be able to transform their lives and be able to turn their pain into their power and their profit, right?
Yeah.
My kids said, hey, and why don't we also kind of jejune your brand, and let's call you the Badass Christina Cooper Foster. And they
Ooh.
had been saying for years that, Mom, you should be making videos
Mhm.
and teach people on a larger scale. And I just really did not know what they meant by that. And so, COVID kind of did me a favor because it taught me that, yes, people do meet this way, right, Brooke? And people want to, still transform their lives, and people still are in pain, and,
Yeah.
and people want to have power and deserve to have power, especially if you've been in pain, right?
Yeah.
And so we decided that we were going to build a whole new brand and also start a revolution. So
Yeah.
we called it the Badass Revolution, and really
Yeah.
what that means to us is not settling for mediocrity, right? And so
Yeah.
as I have, really kind of always lived a very controversial identity, right? And I said, I think what I really want at this season of my life, right, is to create, living legacy for my kids. And I said, I'm going to really wave the flag of what it means to, um, be bold, be
Mhm.
brave, live, with zero regrets, right? And become epic, like live an epic life, or at least go down trying, right? And
Uh,
so the Badass Revolution is really, my methodology is called, fuck fear. I don't know if I can say that there, but I'm going to
yeah,
say
you
it
can.
anyways, right? And give mediocrity the finger.
Oh yeah.
And I just believe that no one should live a life of any regrets,
Mhm.
right? And you only get one life to live, so you should do everything you want in your life, and at
Mhm.
least go down trying,
Mhm.
right? Um, and and pursue every dream that you have,
Mhm.
right? I mean, because if you can dream it, it's
Mhm.
just another reality of your life that you just haven't yet made real.
Right.
And so living the badass life, it means, bucking up, being brave, being bold, and being ballsy.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So where can my listeners find like your website? I'm trying to look it up so I can bring it up, but it wasn't popping up.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. I know. Well, right now it is under construction. Literally,
Okay.
we've been revisioning what the badass revolution. It's our calling to your journey to greatness.
Yeah.
It literally right now is on the chopping block, and it's being designed, and we have about 5 different iterations and amazing events that are going to be coming for people to unleash your inner badass and own your shit
Yeah.
and and fulfill your dreams and and reach your greatness. So
Nice.
so the best way to reach me right now is my Instagram, which is the Badass Christina, and also Christina Cooper Foster, which is my Facebook. My email address is Christina Cooper Foster at Gmail. And that's a great way to reach out to me because we've got a live show we do once a month. In fact, it's every first Monday of the month. And our show is this Monday coming. And it's called The Beautiful You Show. And it's a
Oh,
free
nice.
90-minute show on Zoom, but you do need a link for it. So if you shoot me an email or DM me, I can, give out the links. And yeah, and look for the website. It's coming. It's going to be, the badasschristina.com, and it's
Nice.
coming soon.
Nice. What about your memoir? When does that come out?
Right. So actually, I've been working with a producer, a company that is also helping me put this project together and hopefully shop it to some folks like A&E and Lifetime
Ooh,
and some
yeah.
other platforms, hopefully. But it's a good 2026 away.
Ooh,
Yeah,
I can't
give
wait.
me until 2026 and it'll be out. But we're gonna drop little teasers of the memoir on my YouTube channel, the Badass Christina. We're gonna, just drop some chapters and some goodies because there's all kinds of cray cray that's happened in my life
Mhm.
that's going to be in the memoir, and probably some of it that won't even be in the memoir. It might be just too X-rated. I don't know.
I'm gonna follow you on all platforms now.
I
I have to
know,
get the scoop.
right? My son, who is my web designer, webmaster, he said, "Mom, why are all the pictures that you're sending me to put on the website? Why are you always half naked?" And I said, "Well, my slogan is, teaching women how to kick ass in the boardroom and the bedroom." I said, "But when you see me completely naked, you're on the wrong channel. So get out of my porn."
Oh man, my cheeks hurt. Oh
No,
man,
yeah.
I think one of your sons commented on here. Hold on, let me bring it up. See.
Oh, yes. That's Aaron. Aaron is our up and coming fashion designer. You got to follow him too. His brand is Aaron Foster, Live Legendary. We're going to be dropping his first dragon shirts probably towards the holidays.
Yeah.
So yes, and I'm so very blessed. I have four amazing kids that are not only like just little geniuses and support their mom and cheer me on to everything, but they're literally now my business partners.
That's amazing. That is
Yeah,
amazing.
it is
So my
amazing.
last and final question before I let you go is what legacy do you want to leave behind?
Well, I've always said that I want to literally leave my kids with my greatest asset, which is my power. Right. I mean, money comes and goes. I mean, I believe family is your fortune. I'm just very fortunate that I get to build a family fortune with my four sons. Um, and if there's anything that I know that I'm leaving with them and within them is power. I've watched every single one of my children overcome um, disabilities and rare disease diagnoses, everything from you'll never walk again, you need brain surgery, or you're never going to be mentally healthy and stable. Every one of them, one of my sons was told he wouldn't live to 30,
Oh.
um, and every single one of them have been symptom free with diseases or genetic disorders, and literally they should be just living disabled lives, not walking in a wheelchair. My youngest son was bedridden for a year, and every one of them have learned that their diagnosis is not who they are. It's just what they have, right? And so, yeah, living symptom free, medication free, and overcoming those adversities of not just the actual disease or symptoms, but the adversity of saying I am not my diagnosis,
Mhm.
right? And so, you know the legacy that I leave is already within them, and I think leaving a legacy is a sad thing to do. I think
Mhm.
living your legacy is what every person should be living every
That's true.
day.
That's true. And I agree. I want to thank you so much, Christina, for being a guest on my podcast. And thank you.
Well, I want to thank you, Brooke. I think you're amazing. You are badass.
Thank
And
you.
I can't wait to have you come on our show called The House of Badassery, that
Yeah.
we're going to have our podcast next year in 2026.
Ooh, I can't wait.
Woo! Woo,
You
woo,
have a
woo.
great day.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Love you.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey everyone, I want to thank you all so much for listening to my interview with Christina and check out all of her websites. Thank you all so much. Have a great day. Bye.